Eppich Struna. My husband Timothy and I moved 25 years ago from Ohio with our 3 teenage children. He came to paint and I came to write. We opened Struna Galleries in Brewster. We had 2 more children. The older kids went to college. My older daughter graduated and opened Struna Galleries in Chatham. I'm a member of 2 writing groups. I freelance for Primetime magazine. I enjoy history and write historical fiction. I use alternating chapters where I take my reader, take them back to the past and then to modern times. I choose a legend or a myth and wrap it around my contemporary characters' everyday life, solving a mystery or crafting a new ending to a myth. I'm going to read 2 excerpts from my completed novel, which is in the editing stage right now, The Old Cape House, A Mooncusser's Tale. One is in the present and one is in the past, and I'm currently working on my second novel. It says early June, present day Cape Cod. Cars and semi-trailer trucks whizzed by the blue van as I reached for a bottle of water. I took a drink, glanced at the number of miles that had passed, and decided to tell everyone behind me how far we'd traveled, even if they didn't want to hear. 456 miles, and we've got 350 more before we reach Cape Cod. No response from all 4 kids as usual. Even Paul, my dear sweet husband, was quiet, dozing next to me, his arms crossed in front of his chest, head bobbing up and down. As the odometer on the van clicked off another 50 miles, my precocious 4-year-old Molly started singing and woke Paul from his nap. "Did you get a chance to sleep, honey?" I asked. Paul rubbed his eyes. "A little. How far to the next exit?" "About 15 miles. Hey, do you remember the day we told the kids about buying a house on Cape Cod?" Paul looked over to me. His hand gently stroked my hair and then the nape of my neck. "How could I ever forget, Nancy Caldwell? You were like a little kid about to do something you knew you shouldn't." Paul was gazing out the side window. He turned back to me and said, "You know, I sensed even then that we were all beginning a new chapter in our lives." Glimpses of the children popped in and out of the rearview mirror. I called out to them, "Hey, after we get settled into the house, who's going to be my assistant researching the legends of Cape Cod?" Brian looked disgusted as he played a game on his phone. 13-year-old Casey always ignored me. Persistence was my strong suit, so I tried to get the family talking. "Remember the house that we saw on Goody Hallett Drive in Eastham before we bought the farmhouse?" "Oh yeah," Paul answered. The realtor scared the kids that morning with her recap of the Maria Hallett and Sam Bellamy legend. And then we traveled to, go to the past, December 1715, Eastham, Cape Cod. The damp walls of Eastham's jail felt cold to the touch. Maria Hallett was grateful that her dear friend Abigail had insisted she dress in layers. The extra clothes were worn to her back during the night as she lay on a small, narrow bench against the wall. The rough, uneven cobbles were slippery underfoot as Maria pushed her crude bed toward the opposite wall and under a high, slender window. If she climbed atop the bench, grabbed the iron bars, and pulled herself up on her toes, she could catch sight of the sky. The crisp air chilled her body more than she could stand, but the sight of the soaring gulls and billowing clouds gave her a glimpse of freedom and hope for mercy. 2 nights had passed with no comforting word from anyone. The 3rd morning sunrise brought with it the arrival of Abigail. Relieved to see a familiar face, Maria reached out through the tall iron bars of the door and pleaded with her, "What's going to happen to me?" "Be calm, my dear, I'll tell you what I know." Abigail held the young girl's trembling hands. "Your trial is tomorrow. The weather is too treacherous for the magistrative courts to come from Plymouth. Reverend Treat and the elders of the church will preside." "Please don't leave me," Maria begged. "I'll remain at the proceedings until a verdict is reached." Abigail touched Maria's cheek. "Pray, Maria, if asked, I'll speak in favor of you as much as I can. I must go now. They've only given me minutes with you. Pray." Maria stretched her fingers through the bars and into the frigid air. She begged again, "Abigail, don't leave me." As her friend disappeared behind the heavy wooden door that led to the outside, she screamed in desperation, "Abigail!" Disheartened and terrified of her future, Maria sat on the rigid bench and fixed an empty stare at the toes of her tattered leather shoes. She leaned her body over to one side and slowly dropped down onto the thin cushion of skirts that served as mattress and pillow. Her legs curled into a fetal position, and as Maria's eyes closed, she remembered when she first met Sam.